What's up, everybody? Peter X. Coffer here, and welcome to another episode of the Purple Manifesto, my print sub-channel. Today we are doing the album controversy. So, I started this episode and had to delete about a minute and a half in and go and check what I call the Prince Bible. So, there's a book by Benoit, Benoit, Clerc, Clerc, called Prince, All the Songs, the Story Behind Every Track. So glad I jumped into that, learned a couple things, put things in the perspective of what's going on around all this, this album. I do this a little different than I've done, albums in the past, because I'm going to do 5 things I like about the album, and then, make some comments on, some of the songs. This is my, if I could only bring one album, to a deserted island, this would be the one. I mean, I go back and forth. Well, not anymore. Since with 1999 and Purple Rain, I used to go back and forth about what album is the most important slash best. And then I think, with the expanded editions upon Prince's passing, I have come to a conclusion on that question. But we will get to that when we get to those albums. But this is my favorite. When you look at the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time, Prince has 4 in there: Dirty Mind, 1909, Purple Rain, and Sign of the Times. At least, controversy should be in there. I don't know why controversy doesn't get the respect it deserves, but and it still hasn't. I don't know why. Some albums get respect, over the years, and I don't know, but you know, Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles all have at least 7 and maybe 8 albums on the list. Prince, they can give Prince another slot on that. I've heard other people, if they would add one. I've heard, other people have opinions, but, this would be mine to add. So, let me get to these 5 things. Well, let me give some background first that came out of this. This, right around this time, Prince starts working on the concept for Vanity 6. He had another one of his employees, not Vanity, who he wanted to be the lead singer. And of course, the working title for the band was the Hookers. But it didn't work out, obviously. But the First Time album comes out, and we know the history behind that. Morris, Prince liked Party Up by Morris. Morris, you want money or you want a band? And Morris was like, I'll take the band. So that's how the Time, got his, and I'll jump in even more of that in a minute. So this is also where Prince, and Peggy McCreary starts working together, and then she's the sound engineer out of LA. And of course, Susan Rogers comes later, and of course, as Susan is the most famous. I think Peggy also works in part of 1999. We'll get to that. I think there might be, or maybe, I don't know when Susan Rogers comes in. Can't think of it offhand. Let's see. So Andre Simone was around for part of this, the studio work. But, for the controversy tour, Brown Mark is the bass player. Some controversy about some songwriting here. Andre Simone, Do Me Baby, he said, he should have gotten a writing credit for that. I think he did get a writing credit for Controversy. So that's going on. This is also the time where Prince opens up for the Rolling Stones in LA, and it goes very badly and, for him. Let's see. Oh, Prince also did a documentary of the Controversy tour and then shelved it, but the whole concept he revisits again for Sign of the Times. And the other interesting thing I found out is Tick Tick Bang, which is not, Prince doesn't release until Graffiti Bridge. He does the first version of Tick Tick Bang all the way here in 1980 for Controversy. Now, interestingly, so the time. So, I mean, you have Flight Time. Alexander O'Neal was the lead singer, and Jimmy and Terry obviously were in the band. Turns out, it was going to be Morris's band, but he was going to be the drummer, but Alexander O'Neal asked for too much money. So Prince was like, nope, and Morris became the singer. But Morris and Jesse Johnson were in a band called Enterprise. So, Morris brings Jesse into the time. Alexander O'Neal leaves, and the time is born. So yeah, that's a merging of two bands. So anyway, let's talk about the 5 things I love about this album. This is where, the first thing, Prince reaches for greatness and builds the foundation for his iconic brand. We'll get into that. So that's the first thing I love about this album. We'll get into that more, particularly, with the song Sexuality. Because Prince was still tinkering around, in his first 3 albums, even Dirty Mind. I mean, he kind of admits, and Stare on his last album that he was, Dirty Mind was, to get attention and whatnot. And the Minneapolis Sound starts to emerge, but this is where the Minneapolis Sound really is born. And that's number 2. The birth of the Minneapolis Sound is in this album. So, what's the Minneapolis Sound? Well, the drum machine, and particularly the Linn drum. And he uses the Linn drum for the first time in this album. Very new. Getting rid of the, Prince didn't use horns in any of his stuff. I mean, that was one of his things to be different. But, it's 1980, and if you look at Earth, Wind, and Fire and Cameo and all those groups, they're still, taking they still have a full horn section in the studio, and Prince is using brass patches on a synthesizer for that. So that's number 2, and I've talked about the Minneapolis Sound before. But 3, hey, that passionate screamer who is Prince is born. I mean, Do Me Baby, The Beautiful Ones, International Lover, all that stuff. This is the first time we hear that. And so that's number 3, the passionate screamer is born. Number 4, this is where Prince starts to really get into his duality and playing with contradictions, and particularly sexuality and spirituality. So we'll talk about the whole album, but, the Lord's Prayer being in Controversy is a big part of that. And then 5, hey, listen to my music. My music is political. This album is very political. So yeah, we got my 5 things. So Controversy. To me, Controversy clocks in at 7 minutes and 15 seconds. This is Prince is basically telling the world I'm going rogue. He does the Lord's Prayer, then he says later, he has a breakdown. People call me rude. I wish we all were nude. I wish there was no black and white. I wish there were no rules. So Prince is kind of laying down, what's to come. And he, Uptown, he starts, building his brand and what makes him famous, and he doubles down on that. Controversy is where Prince starts branding through his music, and it starts with controversy. I mean, so that's song one. Song two, sexuality. You know, he just did the Lord's Prayer and controversy. Now he's doing a song called Sexuality. You know, notable on this song is Prince's drum playing. I mean, it's you know, that ain't a Lynn drum. This is Prince playing. He mentions the second coming, so he you know, which is a biblical reference. So he's mixing sexuality, you know, with spirituality, you know, in the song. And he talks about a new breed of leaders stand up and organize. So again, this is the follow-up, these first two songs, to Uptown, where he sort of sketches out where he's going. Sexuality clocks in at 4 minutes and 21 seconds. But, you know, interestingly enough, one of my favorite songs in the outtakes, you know, in the expanded version for 1999 is Purple Music. And he does, you know, in some ways, Purple Music could have been his manifesto, but he does that here. I mean, Prince's his branding through his music, his manifesto starts with Uptown and then goes into controversy and sexuality. And Prince never repeated himself. I love Purple Music, but, you know, he is kind of repetitive in themes, even though I love the song. And it's also pretty similar to All the Critics Love You in New York. And so Prince does that, you know, has that bridge again, or has to burn a bridge, you know, post, when he does, oh man, hold on. All right, so Prince had a similar situation when he came up with the Dance Electric, and, you know, after Purple Rain, the band loved, you know, they would jam on that, and oftentimes they would, you know, in the sound check, they would jam that. And you know, but the problem is Prince already did his his apocalyptic dance song with 1999, so ended up giving the Dance Electric to Andre Simone. So, you know, Prince never repeated stuff, whether it was sound or theme, or, you know, or if he did, it was very rare, and it was, you know, there was enough of a separation where, you know, it wasn't obvious he was repeating himself. So the next, you know, song 3, Do Me Baby, 7 minutes, 43 seconds. You know, Prince lets the woman take control in this song. There's the line, here we are looking for a reason for you to lay me down. And it's do me, baby, not I do you. And so this is one of the things that Prince was really, you know, kind of, you know, rarely was this done. It was usually the man in control and, you know, running stuff and most ballads, and Prince is doing a different thing here. He also at the end talks, you know, has that vulnerability, and I'm so cold, and then he shivers, and he says, just hold me. So Prince is so, you know, really, you know, showing vulnerability, you know, with his screaming, and, you know, that vulnerability juxtaposed with the screaming just as, you know, makes the song, you know, real fascinating. So that was side 1, controversy, sexuality, and Do Me Baby. Side 2 is very similar to, I mean, you know, to the side 2 of Dirty Mind. I mean, you know, there's essentially a segue between Private Joy and Ronnie Talk to Russia into Let's Work. But let's dive in. So, Private Joy, Self-Love, Masturbation. It's rockabilly, little electronic rockabilly, you know, little ode to Elvis here. This is the first time the Lynn drum is used, you know, and it's on Private Joy. You know, then there's the iconic line, I strangled Valentino, it's been mine ever since. If anybody asks you, you belong to Prince. I mean, that's, you know, I know rappers love to be boastful, but basically Prince is like, look, next time, you know, to the woman next time you down there, playing around, think of me, you know. So yeah, that's Prince, you know, doing the boastful hip hop, before the hip hoppers are doing it. Song 5, Ronnie Talk to Russia. It's a little punk rock, maybe pop punk, a little bit of rockabilly. He's doing this thing on guitar. It's about peace and nuclear war. Minute and 58 seconds. So that's perfect, punk. They like to keep it, at least, back in the day, punk would keep it. Green Day sometimes likes to stretch their songs out, and that's fine. But usually punk keeps their songs shorter. Song number 6, Let's Work, 3 minutes 59 seconds. It's sexual, but it's also political. I mean, we know the Let's Work is about the act of sex, but it's coming after, Ronnie talked to Russia and peace and nuclear war. So Let's Work, he's talking about let's work, for peace and, getting rid of nuclear war. And this is the straight nasty funk that Prince is dropping here. Song 8. Anti-Christian, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Now, I have to say, go on YouTube, put that in. There's a 1981 version and New Orleans live version that Prince does of this. It's straight punk. It's awesome. It's not certainly quality-wise, it's not off of the soundboard, so there is, it's not the clearest, but it's not, to the point where it's going to hurt your ears either. But definitely check that out. So this is the, anti-Christian, so it's Antichrist, Satan, the devil, what have you. This is Prince at his weird best. I love Prince when he gets weird, and he's getting weird here. So, he mentions this is political, lots of politics in here. So he mentions the serial killer of black children in Atlanta, mentions assassinations, John Lennon and the attempted assassination of Reagan, then corruption, abscam, where, they, on tape where they're bribing members of Congress. And then gun control, going back to Ronnie Talk to Russia, peace. So there's a lot going on, a lot to unpack in that song, but I loved it. It's one of my favorites. And it's Prince, again, as I said, I love it when he gets weird, and it works in this song. And he also, I love the line, I'll live my life in taxi cabs. It's a metaphor that he goes back to in 1999 with Lady Cab Driver. So life is transient. You never know what's going to happen. Let me have sometimes you might be away from your car or whatever. You just have to jump in a cab and jet, so to speak. So yeah, I love his use of the metaphor with the taxi cab. Finally, we end the album with Jack You Off, 3 minutes, 9 seconds. This is electro rockabilly again. Self-love, masturbation again. So, hey, Prince was doing Apple before Apple with this, with this album. I mean, it's, Apple, the iPad, the iPhone, the iWatch, you. Well, Prince is like, be good to yourself in many ways, including sexually. And if there's no one else there, handle it yourself. So, lot going on. This is also, the first time Prince becomes associated with the color purple. He's wearing, the purple trench coat on the cover of Controversy. This is kind of, is basically like, you do you. I mean, he does a reboot of this, going back to where I talked about his manifesto. This whole album is a manifesto, and he revisits it again, in the early 90s with the song New Power Generation. Kind of, where he tries to rebrand. We'll talk about that when we get there. Not as clear of a rebrand, in the, I still think it's a rebrand, but there's so much happened after that, does he flesh it out and fulfill it like he does, here on this album? Probably not, because a lot of stuff comes up in the 90s for Prince, but, he lands it here and he puts it all together. And then he's off and running with 1999 and Purple Rain after this album. But this is a masterful album of how to brand through your art. And really, controversy carries through, and he kind of caps off this aspect of his career and this chapter of branding in his career with Love Sexy. And but this is a brilliantly executed. I mean, I love the politics. Some are like, well, it's a little naive and shallow politically. Well, I mean, what Prince is calling for. I mean, he's not a political science professor, but I mean, it's reasonable, and I agree, with what he's calling for the most part. He's looking around society and commenting. I mean, you can't do a dissertation in the album, about all, whatever society's ills are, but you can comment on them, and he takes different issues and strings them together and does a good job of letting folks know where he stands on things. And this is also where Prince, starts. Prince, had a trickster side, and obviously there's a lot of the trickster side coming out in controversy. Am I gay? Am I black or white? Yada, and all that stuff. And so he really, this is where Prince kind of starts to blossom and finds his voice as an artist and certainly his 80s voice. And it is 1980, so he really, puts the marker down and sets the tone, with this album for what he'll do in the 80s. So yeah, love this album, my favorite, personal favorite. Not saying it's his best, but I do think it's underrated. And fortunately, it's been 40 plus years, and it's still, in my opinion, not getting the respect it should. And hopefully someday it will. But anyway, thanks for coming through. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Look at I do folders here on YouTube, different things, but I've grouped all my Prince episodes together, so check those out. And I know there's still, there's at least 3 other Prince channels I found on YouTube. So hey, Prince fans, share an episode and pass it on to them. We appreciate that. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Got 6 albums of my own now. There's a lot of, Prince is one of my big influences. So check those out. They're here on the, channel here on YouTube, and I'm on all the streaming services. I recorded under the name Exodus, X-O-D-U-S. I also have written 2 science fiction fantasy novels and novella. You can get my books on Amazon, and I right under the name Peter Exodus O'Coffer. Going back to my music, my first Exodus, X-O-D-U-S, and my first album is called Book 1. So thank you again. Appreciate your support, and I will see you next episode.